My name is Dawoud Bey, and the title of the exhibition is Class Pictures. Class Pictures is an exhibition of photographs and text. The photographs are of American teenagers, American high school students, and the texts are all texts that were written by the students that I photographed. The photographs were made in a number of different cities across the country. And what I wanted to do was to make a kind of, a sort of historical snapshot, if you will, of the population at this particular moment, the population of American teenagers, to kind of bring some sense of visual description to who these young people are. I first started photographing teenagers as my primary subject about 15 years ago when I did a residency at the Addison Gallery of American Art at Phillips Andover. And I was there for 8 weeks making work. And that was the first time that I spent an extended period of time making work with and about young people, the primary subject of my work. And that was in 1992. And as it turns out, that was the beginning of what became a much lengthier project, in which, even as the shape and form of my work has changed, the thing that has been consistent about it from 1992 to the present is that the work is about young people. It engages and attempts to bring some heightened sense of description to who young people in America are, in a way that I think goes beyond what's usually a one-dimensional, cliched, or stereotypical kind of representation that young people tend to receive within the larger and broader popular culture. I would say I've had a number of memorable experiences, not only making the photograph, but actually hearing from some of the young people in the project after the photographs have been made. And I think one young man in particular, Kevin, who's actually on the cover of the book that accompanied this exhibition, was the one student who I photographed, and I wasn't able to get a print to him afterwards because he was expelled from Phillips Academy, actually, shortly after the photograph was made. And I always hoped that at some point, once the book was published and once the exhibition started to travel, that I would hear from Kevin, since he was on the cover of the book and he was so prominently featured in a lot of the reviews about the show. And sure enough, I did. And I heard from Kevin, and he's now a student at Morehouse College in Atlanta. And there have been a few other students who, after the fact of making the pictures, have gotten in touch with me to, continue some form of contact or relationship after the fact. So that's probably, for me, been one of the most, moving aspects of doing the work. Destiny, fate. Now, I became interested in photography when I was 15 years old, and I got a camera from my godmother that had belonged to my godfather, who had just passed away. And for no particular reason, we had gone to her house after the wake, or the funeral, I don't remember which, And as we were getting ready to leave, she said, "Oh, wait a minute, I have something for you, something I want to give you." And I went upstairs with her, and she gave me a camera. And she said, "This camera had belonged to your godfather, and I want you to have it." I wasn't at all interested in photography at that point, but getting the camera sparked my imagination, and I decided that I needed to figure out how to use this thing. So I started buying photography books and magazines to educate myself about what does one do with this camera, with all these numbers on the lens and these numbers on the side of the camera, and you turn it and the shutter opens and closes quicker or slower. I mean, I had no idea, but it was getting that camera from my godmother that sparked my initial interest in photography. But from the beginning, my work had been primarily concerned with representing and making photographs of the human subject. So class pictures certainly is a part of that larger fabric of my work that began when I started making pictures seriously in 1975. I'm very interested as an artist in finding ways to talk about and to describe the human experience in photographic form in a way that leaves the viewer with some sense of having had, through the work, some contact with a real person. Kind of look at everything. I don't think there's any one thing that I, necessarily look at, because I've been obviously looking at photographs and looking at, art, looking at portraits critically for a very long time. I think one of the things that's always inspired my work in a way that might not necessarily be immediately obvious is music. I find, music, probably because I also am a musician, to be one of my, inspirations as an artist, to try to get a certain level of depth and perception in my photograph that I find in the best music. Let's see. Dark Night was a good one. Yeah, Dark Night was a real, highly emotive piece of work. So just off of the top of my head, because it's also one of the most recent films that I've seen, I would say Dark Night. If I wasn't an artist, I would be what I am, which is also a musician, and I'm also a writer. I do a lot of writing, some of which is on photography, most of which isn't. I'm also involved in a number of curatorial projects, which I have been for a long time. So for me, it's not really a hypothetical question, because there are other expressive outlets that I have for my ideas. Well, I think all of the things that I'm engaged in allow me to be more fully and expressively and intellectually present in the world in different ways. I mean, there are things that I'm interested in talking about and ideas that I'm interested in working with that I don't necessarily want to make photographs about, that I can actually use other artists' work to talk about. So for me, it's all about being fully and expressively and intellectually present in the world, which I think all of those things allow me to do and be. Even as I realize that they're free to take from it whatever they will, if I had to have a hope, I would hope that, the work gives them a sense of connectedness to the larger human community. I'll figure it out.
Big.
Okay, okay. Now,
Whenever you're ready.
whenever I'm ready.